Alright, y'all, a bit delayed, but we're about to start the live stream. We are going live in just a minute here. It's me. I'm over there. Let's see. I'm in my new office once again. I think that looks alright. I've got my Twitch chat open here on that screen. Yeah, alright. Let's see what we can do here. Goodness. I'm a little disheveled. 1 second. Okay. So, we are having some funny site issues today on Gymnasium, so I'm just going to skip that part where I usually introductize my our services here. And I'm just going to jump right into it. So I'm Mike Bifulco. I am Technical Director for the Gymnasium. Gymnasium being a free online code school. I am working on a front-end library, a UI library for Gymnasium. We've been building out this storybook project, and I'm going to start a new branch for us to work on today. We're going to do some documentation stuff. So create a new branch from master. We're going to do feature documentation. Pull this down, and I'll show you where we're at with all this cool stuff. And we can walk through the goodness. So, first thing I'm going to do is run npm run storybook. We're running this project with npm for once and not yarn. To be honest with you, somewhat arbitrarily, but it's sort of because this is we're planning to do this as an npm package, and I figured it would be better to stay on npm's I don't know what you would call it, most supported method, even though yarn is a, what would you call it, a superset of npm's commands. We're using just plain old, boring old npm for this one. So let me pull open a couple of tabs on my second monitor here. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I see Justin's on. Justin, how's it going? We're hanging out in the chat here. We're going to have a nice busy live stream today. I'm going to close up some apps here to free up some RAM. In case you're curious, while I'm streaming, I tend to have, of course, the work stuff on the screen that you can see, and on my other screen I have Twitch. Ooh, audio's a little low. Let's see what we can do to fix that. How's that a little better? Got my gain control handy over here. Yeah, so on one screen I've got my working things, the stuff that you see, this npm business running right now. On the other screen I have a Twitch dashboard, and I have Twitter open, typically. So I'm keeping an eye on those things while this all gets running. Today we're in a little bit of a funny place. It looks like GitHub is having quite a few issues, so it might get interesting to do any of this stuff. GitHubstatus.com. GitHub has been really funky for us all day today. It looks like they're back up, but you can see there's been a lot going on here. I don't know what time 1408 UTC is, but it might have been this hour, possibly. Lots of funny stuff going on. Our site is suffering as a result of it, and my dev process today has been really confusing. We'll call it confusing as a result of that, too. So I am coding on a big, giant 27-inch monitor here. So if any of this stuff looks too small, please do let me know, and I will zoom in. In fact, I'm going to preemptively zoom in on this one, because I feel like that'll be small. So let's talk about what we're looking at here. So we've been, with the help of a developer that's been working with our team for a couple of weeks now, we've been building out a UI library for Gymnasium that is going into its own standalone storybook, which will basically be a self-contained package which we will deploy to NPM as a way to use Gymnasium flavored UI components, both in the way they look and the way they interact. And the idea is to practice what we preach in some sense, and use some of the things that we've talked about in our various courses, and of course on some of my live streams, to better build out something that we can use for our future Gymnasium stuff. So if you've been hanging out with me on the stream for a while now, you know that we've also been working on a Gatsby site, a rebuild of Gymnasium with Gatsby, which is coming along. And in the past couple of weeks, we decided to divorce that new Gatsby site from the storybook stuff that we had been doing. So they were running within one repo before, and that was really just kind of getting messy. It was very, very complex to keep the storybook stuff going alongside the Gatsby stuff, and it made testing a real pain, and a lot of the updates we were doing just frequently broke. So I am, now we're at a point where we're running the storybook separately, which is what we're looking at here. I'm going to run through it in a minute. We'll talk about what we're going to do on the stream today, and then from there we will get down to work. So, got to stay hydrated here, but let's talk about this. So, the storybook that we're looking at here serves a couple of purposes. And in fact, I'm going to open up a new tab here and show you the repo. So this is open source. If you're curious, you can go and look at this and pick it apart. Feedback is always welcome. In fact, if you want to send us a pull request, that'd be really cool. Looks like we have a circle test that's failing. Interestingly, we can take a look at that. We're doing visual testing with a product called Percy, and I'll show you how that works today on stream 2. And then we can run through the process here. So, like I said, this repo, Gym UI, is just meant to be a React UI component library used by Gymnasium. So, in fact, we can add some topics here. React is probably a good one. Components is probably a good one. Component library. And we'll go with Gatsby for good measure. Because, oh no, okay, well, maybe we won't put Gatsby in there. Yeah, some of those things are probably saved. Gatsby. So this is our little repo. Right now there's 3 contributors in the repo, myself, Ali, who's been working on a lot of these UI components and is largely to thank for a lot of the work that we'll walk through today. And then I guess the third is probably an automation service of some sort. Let's see. Yes, dependent bot. Yeah. And then in the dependency graph, there's 90,000 people who've gone into building this. Excuse me. So that should give you some context for how wonderful open source is. That's pretty amazing. Okay, so this library, if you went and pulled it down locally, there's not a lot to it. Really, what it is this storybook project, which we'll go through, and then a bit of TypeScript compilation that builds a component library, meaning a standalone JavaScript package, which you can reference externally to import Gymnasium-looking things. And so, hey, Casey's here. How's it going, Casey? We are going to work on this today. So the project itself is relatively simple. You can feel free to poke around in Circle CI or in GitHub or in Storybook or in VS Code. These are all to do with settings and configuration. In fact, we'll probably talk through a lot of the Storybook stuff today. The interesting stuff for our purposes are in source and stories. So stories, of course, is where we make the definitions for all of the stories that we see in the Storybook. So that's where we add the configuration for a bulleted list with or without a title, and how to build out those things. It does look like there's some things missing from this build right now, which I'm a little unhappy with. That's funny. Some of the add-ons are missing, that is. I'm not sure why, but I have a backup plan for that if this stops working. There should be a bottom pane here is what I'm looking for that's missing. All right, well, let's talk through a few of these. So probably the easiest one to look at for the sake of going through this stuff is we have our nice logo component, which has, maybe I've closed this pane, which has its own background set. What is this about? Oh, that's the grid, which is a little hard to see. Oops, didn't want to do that. It opens it in an iframe. That full screens it. I don't know where that bottom container went. That's a little funky. Show sidebar, add-ons orientation. Sure. There we go. It's back. Okay, cool. So let's talk about what's going on here. So this gym logo is a component that you're meant to be able to use just as a bit of standalone JavaScript. So let's pull this over here. I'll show you the story. I'll zoom in on this a bunch. It is really meant to just be an importable, oh man, I've got my VS Code config wrong. It always complains about this. It's an importable component, a React component that we can render just like you would expect to, which when rendered is a Gymnasium logo. Look at that. So we've got a couple of properties you can pass into it, dimensions, width and height that you can set, and a background color override. So if we wanted to set the background to black, we could do that, or we could say something like bright green. Let's see. Probably don't need that. Yeah, so that's the long and short of how a story works. It's meant to be a testable thing that we can use this as a place that's sort of our testing ground, our playground, our sandbox, whatever you want to call it, for building out components. As you can see, we've got a handful of components, including our button here. We've got a bulleted list, which was what was shown at the beginning, with or without a title, with some internal markup. A bunch of different types of buttons, which we have individual stories for. We have a card, which is sort of just a content container. You can see it's sort of just a border with a white background. There's an option to give it rounded corners ever so slightly. We can add columns or rows to it, and then separators as well. We also have this featured content thing, which is used across the site. It has a title, a content area, a sort of primary call to action, and then a secondary call to action below. You can see these are used in several different places across the site. In fact, there's, I'll call it a display bug on this one right now, that the link is turning orange when I hover over it. For this part of the content and for this particular element, that is not typical. So that's something that we'll have to go and address at some point. Anyway, there's a bunch of these things. The headings are for the typography used across the site. Left aligned, right aligned, all that kind of stuff. We've got one for links. So there are links everywhere on Gymnasium, and these are sort of a bunch of different testable cases for how a link should look, which we can see. Link with an image might need to get a better name at some point, but this is a pattern that's used in a few places across the site, and we thought we'd abstract it into its own component. It looks like there might even be a little bug on these guys. It's probably hard to see on the stream, but the text jumps up about a pixel when I hover over it. And then we've got our nav bar, which is the newest component that's sort of in flux right now, or maybe just being finished. I know there's another revision of this coming, which will allow us to render our complete navigation structure with a logo, with background colors, at various heights, with all the content off to the left and centered, which we will hopefully not ever use. And then a couple other things, right? We have these tabs, which we use on the home page. We have the logout menu, which is used in the nav, and broken out into its own component. So the storybook is really just a place for us to test all these things, and the idea is that we can now pull in a button to any of our other projects by way of referencing it on NPM, and then have this button which behaves the same everywhere we use it. So that'll be really fantastic to use. There is a very, very nascent release of this stuff on NPM if you want to go look at. It's at, it'll look like this, at Gymnasium/Gym UI, like that, on NPM. But no need to do that now if you're paying attention to the stream. So let's talk a bit more about what's going on in the storybook here. There are a bunch of things we can do. There's some add-ons here. I can throw a grid on the back of any of these things to look at layout alignments. I can hit this guy, which is a color blindness add-on, which will let me see what the interface for anything will look like. So let's take a look at our, not headings, our nav bar with the logo, with some of these color blindness settings on. So Protanopia, would make our Gymnasium logo look like that. So if you're someone who has this sort of color blindness, it looks like this. These are really interesting to look at because really kind of a significant population of humans is colorblind in some way. I think it's like 1 in 7 men are colorblind, or males, however that's most correctly put. Genetically, just sort of predisposed, men tend to have color blindness more than women. And this is a good way for us to test to make sure we're not putting similar colors together in a way that someone with these sorts of color blindness wouldn't be able to use the Gymnasium site. So I can reset this and everything will go back to normal. There's also on the bottom pane here, which is why I was so fussy about getting this thing to show up before. If I pull this up, you can see the code that comprises this example. So we've got a nav bar. The nav bar has some links within, and so these are all our components that are being used. So the nav bar, the link component, you can see it's pretty trivial and simple to add one of these things, and this JSX is really just for us to be able to say like, yeah, cool, this is how this thing is created. There's also an actions add-on here, where if I click on something that is actable and the actions are hooked up, which I believe I believe the button may be the only place where that happens right now. So let's pull that up and I'll show you how that add-on works. In the meantime, I'll show you it in the story. So we have this on-click action wired up, and all it does is action button clicked. So that talks to this actions pane. If I go to a button, and let's do just the default button to unconfuse this. If I click on that, we should, but aren't, should get an action down here. Maybe it's only in the summary. Huh, not at all. That's funky. What I would expect to see is a little printout here of the event that happened that should just say button clicked. Let's see. Maybe I accidentally modified that. No. Casey, thanks for hanging out. I'm here every week. Have a good meeting. I will talk to you soon, I hope. Okay, so that actions thing isn't working. We can investigate that at some point. There's also this accessibility tab, which goes and runs a bunch of accessibility tests in addition to this color blindness simulator. And this will tell me about things that may have gone wrong. So we are apparently in violation of a color contrast thing for, let's see, it looks like white. It looks like probably this orange on white isn't fully accessible. We have a contrast ratio of 2.22, which is something like 2.2 to 1, where we should be going for 3 to 1. So we could do some improvement on that. In our case, that would probably take a reconsideration of either the white color we use here or the orange we use for our Gymnasium logo. But it's good to know that that's there. That's a real thing and a real consideration, especially for people who have trouble seeing. That's a real deal. So that's the accessibility thing. I can also toggle this and it'll show me. It's probably a little hard to see on stream, even if I zoom in. Yeah, but there's a little red dotted outline on everything that's violating accessibility rules right now. And in this case, it's pretty much everything on the screen here, unfortunately. If I hop over to the Docs tab here, we can then see, what does this do? Oh, that's not what I want to do. Okay, so if I click on the Docs tab, it will switch to our documentation view, and this is probably what I'm the most excited about. So this is a mostly generated documentation page for how to use the button control. What this gives is an idea of so the name of the component, we're allowed to associate a subtitle with this thing. It gives a demo from the default story. So this here is the same as this first story here. And in fact, we might rename summary to demo. The props are all extracted from comments in the code. So if I go to button.tsx, all of these props are defined in this interface. So we're using TypeScript for this project. It will tell you that these buttons have, let me put this side by side here. So these are the props that are fed into the button, which is exactly the same as these props here in the same order. And the comments that you see here end up in the description. It also infers the type. from the TypeScript definition here, as well as the default from either the interface defined here on the component creation, or if we used, I believe, prop types, it would pull it from there. And if you're not using TypeScript, it can pull all of this from prop types in addition to comments left around the component. And below there is a re-rendering of all of the stories for this thing. And ideally, this page here should give us enough context to know how to use this button. Right now, what it's not showing is documentation required to import and demonstrate the thing. So to do that, we might do something. Yeah, and actually you can see some of the code here. But to do that, we would actually want to, I think, modify the story. So I will show you how that works. So you can see here, this comment comes from, or this comment gets rendered into the subtitle here. So if I wanted to give a quick demo of that, I might say import, oops, let's see if this works. I don't actually know if it will. Import button from Gymnasium Gym UI. And then I would say const button equals button. And then let's look at one of the examples here. Button, yeah, okay. Unclick equals alert clicked. And then I can give a title here, click me for an alert. And in theory, when I hit save here, Storybook will go recompute, and if it works the way I think it does, that code sample will show up here. I don't really know, I haven't actually tested this before. I hit save, it's probably thinking, it takes a minute. Yeah, okay, so that's single line and that's not perfect. Maybe it's this that's messing it up. I don't really know. There are likely options and ways to do this. There are really a ton of different ways to render this, and we're kind of using a lot of the out of the box stuff right now. And I can show you some of the other options for this. But the idea would be that we'll use these docs and compile them into their own sort of doc page for ourselves eventually, where the documentation pages can live on their own site and serve as the standalone documentation for how to use Gym.UI. So what I'd like to do eventually is add just a documentation page that's sort of a README or an intro for how to do this, how to import it into your given project, and then how to play around with these various components. That's where we're at right now. There's so much to do that I could go in a million different directions with the stream. I would like to show a bit about how this docs thing works, and I think that's probably reasonable to do. I'm probably going to do documentation for link because there's not a ton here right now. All of this stuff. So let me walk that back a bit. Everything you see here is automatically generated. I haven't done any work beyond setting up the docs add-on to get this to pop up. But what did I just click? That's cool. Let's say I wanted to add some more documentation to this thing. Well, we can talk about how I would do that. So we saw before that if I add this JS doc comment here, a Gymnasium flavored component for linking to for linker tags. How about we'll say wrapper component for stylized anchor tags. And I'm even going to say link is a wrapper component for stylized anchor tags. We don't need the param thing. There we go, it already shows up there. So that's where that comes from. What else was on this button page? I actually don't really recall. Oh yeah, okay, so this is the subtitle. That comes from link.stories.tsx. Here I have to define a component. That's not what I wanted. Subtitle, I believe. Link. A link to the past. Let's see if that works. I may have this name wrong. Oh no, yeah, there we go. So the component subtitle shows up there. And then what we need to do for this link component is give some descriptive comments for how these various props look. So the props that are defined in the TypeScript interface for the link, oops, I'm in the wrong file, don't have any comments on them currently. So if you do this sort of a comment, it creates, so it's a /* with a second star, creates a JS.doc comment, and this is how we add the annotations to use for these things. So children, the content to render within this link. Hit save real quick just to show, it should show up there. Yeah. To the anchor tags href property accepts a string, a URL string, or JavaScript. I believe it will accept JavaScript. So here I cannot use these rich text, the markdown annotations, and that's okay. Sorry, I am just checking my Slack notifications. We got a lot going on here. Okay, so the idea here is to comment the other things. So we're going to say is dark. Set to true to render this link with dark text and an orange hover behavior color. And then is light is very similar to that. So these are different from the default behavior, both in that is light makes the text white rather than orange to begin with, and is dark makes the text black to begin with, and then upon hovering they turn orange as opposed to turning and getting this underline here. So we should actually update this default story for the link to show that, and we'll do that in a minute. Rel, title, and target. These are overkill. These are being stolen. These don't need to be here, pretty much. Yeah, those don't need to be there. Those are just passed through by way of this rest bit here that this thing is complaining about. We're going to disable that lint check on prop spreading. So let's see, how can we do that? Yes, lint disable prop spreading, maybe? React, JSX, no, JSX props, no, spreading. So generally speaking, that is a good rule to leave enabled, but on a UI library, excuse me, on a UI library like this, it's going to need to be used on occasion to pass things through. So let's let that be. We're going to update the default story for this link to show a link on in various colored backgrounds. I'm curious what all this noise is about. those don't need to be there. Actually, I think I can use these with those. Huh. Funny. Okay, so what we're going to do is add a couple more examples here. Is dark is light. We want is light 2 equals slash. This is a dark link on a dark background. That's not true. It's a light link on a dark background. Link is dark 2 equals that. This is a dark link on a light background. Perfect. Okay, and importantly here, so you can see these have the correct hover behavior. Links are inline elements, right? So we need to drop a space in there and probably in here. And now our story has all 4 of our link sort of types, all 4 of these scenarios included. That's great. Ooh. Oh. There's something funny going on there. This is probably very difficult to see on stream. Let's see if I can show this off here. Why are we not navigating? Ah, canvas, right. So if I go to the default story here, yeah, it's hard to see. I'm gonna zoom, maybe that'll help. When I hover, do you see that? The underline kind of jumps. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on there. That's not great. There might be an animation or something. I will note also that my machine is running particularly slowly right now, which might have something to do with all this. But let's take a look at the link component. So this is good. In the process of writing documentation, I found a bug. We can address the bug and submit a change for it. Hopefully make this all better. So, well, how does this thing work? So on hover, this link gets the text decoration of none. On hover, it gets a 1 pixel solid bottom border. Let's do this just to be super explicit about it. The thing hot, reload. Oh, still, huh? Oh, no, it's better. Oh, no, it's not better. What? Hey, I'm getting a call from an 800 number. Anyone want to talk to tech support? Tech support, spam call, whatever that might be. Let's hit the Android screen call button, see what they do. The person you're calling is using a screening service from Google and will get a copy of this conversation. Go ahead and say your name and why you're calling. Ooh, no response. Bummer. Oh well, I guess we won't have any fun on my stream today. All right, here's what I'm curious about. I've never actually seen this happen before. So we're going to pull up our in-browser inspection tools. We'll close this bottom pane because it may be slowing things down. Hopefully you can see how unbelievably slow this is going. There are some warnings in here. What? Why am I seeing Ethereum mining? Why in God's name? Oh, that is from a browser plugin. MetaMask Web3 object. Let's disable that. Okay, it's gone. Let's get rid of that. I was poking around with the Brave browser a couple weeks ago and went down a rabbit hole with MetaMask and a couple other things. That, by and large, I didn't find anything to be super spectacular or useful. So I kind of decided to forego all of that. But that should get rid of lots of those warnings that were coming to the console. 12 user messages. Let's see. We'll receive props. I wonder what's referencing that. Okay, so anyway, I was coming back here to grab the inspector and inspect one of these. And what I wanted to see was the underline. No, the border of one of these bad boys upon being hovered or focused or active. No. Visited. Trying to see what causes that little secondary underline to pop up. Is it possible it's animating? Oh, it is animating. Look at that. We don't want that. So in theory now, yeah, got it. Ah, that makes a lot of sense. So a little animation transition found its way into there. I can see how that is intended to be a good thing. And actually, that transition was probably also working on the color. I bet if I put this back in and I save, the color will change gradually. It does. That in itself is a little bit nice for these guys. So maybe I'll put the transition on the dark and light style, but not on the default. And Justin, you can override that. I think Ali might have dropped that in place. You can definitely veto any and all of that. But at least that all makes sense. Yeah, great. Okay, so anyway, what did we just do? So we went and we documented this thing. It's now got, let me zoom back out. It's now got better documentation. It doesn't show how to use the thing, which I'd love to get that in here. It's got some good demo stories. Dark link, light link. Okay. And it's not assignable to the type of intrinsic attributes and props in children. Yeah, okay, so it's gonna give me a little type error because of that. I wonder how I do React. This wiki page took too long to render? Well, that's not helpful. This should be closed. Interface props extends react.props. Let's try that. No, actually that doesn't look right. Let's grab that handbook link from the bottom here. Tell me this isn't circular. Yeah. So I don't think that was exactly what I'm looking for here. Oops. Let's see. I know for sure of an example of this in Material UI's props in a component, so we're just going to go and steal how they did it. Oops. Packages, Material UI, source, link. Let's see what they did. Two. Do they have it called two? I forget what they call it. Might be URL or href or something. Other. So how did we type other? It's just not defined in here. Oh, that's a JS and not a TypeScript. Aha, let's try that. Extends. I put that in the wrong place. Props. Extends. React dot. Let me type. Is that where that goes? Oh, an interface can only assign an object or type or intersection of object types with statically known members. Mm-hmm. Cool. And these .d.ts are definition files. I don't know that they're necessarily generated. Is there an interface here? Yeah. Link type map. P equals that. boy, this is some real interesting generic stuff going on here. All right, let's try and describe what I think is happening here. So this is a link type map. So this is the map of types used on a link, which is passed into the interface. Sorry, that is the interface, but this link type map has some generics that are passed into it. Meaning this takes in a default prop set, a default component type, link class key. Oh wow, okay. And this is for their crazy style extension. So interface props p, so this would be something like p equals that, d extends, yeah, great. Okay, so they've created this crazy definition. Let's see if I can make this even remotely work. Props. So this is saying props is p bitwise and link base props wow, okay. And we don't need typography classes, we don't need any of that. So P, oh boy. No, actually I think we can just say P and React dot anchor HTML attributes. Where does this HTML anchor element come from? It just exists. It just is a thing. That must come from pulling in React, possibly. Okay. Okay, so long story short, I think all I need to do is add, oh God, what have I done? Oh God, okay. I think all I have to do is add this. No. Let's do that there. And then I don't need any of this majesty here. Wow, this is some freaking chaos going in here. Okay, so we probably need to look at what override props is doing. This seems like, let's just look up extends react.element type equals a. Let's look at that. There's probably a perfectly reasonable way to do this. Awesome. Yes, super easy. So that's a huge relief. Okay, if this works, it's a relief. Let's take a look at the changes I made in the link here. We need to get this back. How do I keep getting that map? I don't want it. This should look like that. Like it once did. Oh no. All those beautiful comments I put in. Take me back. No. No. Can't even tell if undo is working. This thing is going so slow. No, 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 no. Okay, we can save the day still. Look at this. We'll get rid of this error boundary hover job. All right, here's what we're gonna do. A little hack here. I apologize. My laptop is really dying here. We're just gonna copy all these guys in one at a time. Cool. Is dark is light. We can then get rid of these guys, and when we create the link component, so this is saying create me the React function component with type props, as well as, and this example here was showing, and, so the and joins the things together. Props and React HTML props, and then we pass in the HTML button element. And comma, and that's probably the default. What does it say? Generic type function component requires between 0 and 1 prop definitions. Did that work? That might have worked. Let's take a look. Let the thing compile. Hey, it looks like that might have worked, and now we can see all of the additional types that get passed through by an anchor. You know what? That's a flaw I'm willing to put up with in the documentation here. Holy hell, you can give a lot of stuff to an anchor tag. I wouldn't even call it a flaw. That's completely thorough. Wow, okay, great. So let's call that defined, and we're gonna close this. And so that was a long-winded demo to show you how to add a few freaking comment lines to a component in one of these things. Now, there's an awful lot going on in here, right? Like, let's not get that twisted. This documentation page now has suddenly grown to a spot where it might be untenable, and really the things that it's missing for me at the top is a demo of how to import the thing and use it. But getting us there is getting us to this point, I guess, is halfway there. So there are other ways to override the things that get displayed in these docs if we find them to be not super useful. Like, for example, I think this button is still perfectly fine. So, yeah, with that being said, I think that's a good spot to end the stream. My work from here is to add more documentation to all of these things, and then to work through some code style challenges that I'm seeing in my own editor. Not particularly interesting to do on stream and kind of exhausting to talk through. So I'm going to call it a day here. I will be back next week for more streaming goodness. And at that point, we will be likely integrating these components into our existing Gatsby project. And that'll be way more exciting. So, with that being said, y'all have a good day, a good week. I will catch you next week. And thanks for hanging out and putting up with my personality and or technical difficulties. I will see you next week. Take it easy, everyone.